All right. Good morning, everybody. It is Friday morning. We're already at oh my God, the 5th of August already. Holy shit. Feels like just yesterday we were complaining about how July just snuck past, and here we are like a week down in August. It's madness. Ben hates this shit because he's like, well, you have a calendar, obviously. What do you think is going to happen in like Monday to Friday? Anyway, it's something I deal with. I mean, what can we say? All right, everybody, on, like, subscribe, blah, 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 blah. I don't want to get through all that shit right at the beginning of my day. But it's important, and we have to talk about it. So let's go. Do the likes and subscribes and all that stuff, please. And let's get cracking. We've got a busy day ahead of us. Everybody's got things to do, people to see, and places to go, and we're going to make it count. All right. Oh, what can I tell you? First things first, yesterday, straight after the show, I stupidly agreed to let my sister bring her puppy here. She has a little corgi puppy. It's the cutest little thing you've ever seen. Let me see if I can actually get you a picture of this crazy little animal. And she brought it here for me to look after, which, I mean, I volunteered for this, so I have no one to blame but myself, right? And this is a very, very cute little dog, but 2 puppies, oh my God, it exponentially increases the amount of work that you have to do. And this little thing is just, she's properly cute. She's like a little bit younger than my Alice. I'm used to like one dog, and she behaves herself mostly, and she's very sweet and good and all of that stuff. This little thing is a terror. It just seems to operate with only itself as the only rule maker, and it does whatever it wants. It's this big, it's tiny. It looks like a bunny crossed with a bear crossed with a fox. And this is also why my sister-in-law always says to me, oh, well, why don't you look after your nephews more? Why don't you offer to take them away for a weekend or whatever? I'm like, well, because it's really hard work, and I didn't choose to be a parent. So just because you have this responsibility doesn't mean I have to opt in automatically for it. And don't get me wrong, I love my little nephews. I love my sister's little puppy. They're all awesome. I don't equate them by any means either. Obviously, the humans are a little bit more interesting and more complicated than the dogs, but it's still hard work, and it's work that I didn't select. So I spent most of the morning doing that. And by the way, you then write off your whole morning, because there is just no way that you can get other things done when you're either looking after a child, which is a full-time fucking job, or a little dog, which is also a full-time job. So I was doing both of those, and it was a killer, an absolute killer. We are getting Ben Karpinski on a little bit later on. David says, have you got facial hair? Yep. That's one of the things that Ben and I agreed last Friday, and we were going to grow our beards until I think next Friday is the cutoff that we agreed. I made a note in my diary, which means that is how long I'm going to have to keep doing this stuff. I have to tell you, this is the longest I've ever grown a beard or mustache, and I don't like it. It may work, but we'll talk about that with Ben later on. Some people, it makes them feel more manly. Some people, it makes them feel less like tidy and groomed and all of that shit. I don't know. I haven't decided yet. But I've got another week of this from today, so let's see how it goes. It's definitely different. All right. Cliff Central is not as busy as Xi Jinping is today. Oh, yeah. He's got lots to work out. Alice. She's got a little squeaky toy, which is not the best thing for her to be doing during the show. So Xi Jinping obviously is busy sorting out the whole Nancy Pelosi saga, but this whole Taiwan thing has got China on high alert. Just let me sort this out. Alice. No. Jesus. I could have all the things that she has to play with today. It has to be that one. Gareth, your skin is so pale and your beard is so blonde that I legit cannot see it. Oh, thank you, Carl. Very nice. So now you have some sympathy for parents who work from home during lockdown. Oh, are you kidding, Carl? Like, I am going to offer an unreserved apology if I said anything that in any way indicated that I was less than sympathetic. So, yes, totally understand. I bow down before parents who manage to look after kids and do work during lockdown. Must have been the hardest thing ever. A beard is a flavor saver. There's always leftovers available. That's what Corona's Boring says. It's disgusting. And it's one of the reasons I've never really liked beards. It's like I read The Twits when I was a kid, Roald Dahl's The Twits, and Mr. Twit had this beard. And Roald Dahl describes in detail how Mr. Twit would find savory snacks in his beard from Alice. No. When he would eat lunch, stuff crumbs and like leftovers and bits and pieces would fall in his beard, and then he'd eat them later, which was so gross. And I remember as a kid just being horrified by that. Might have completely colored my experience of what beards are and do. And maybe that's why I avoided it for a long time. If you want to do a psychoanalysis of maybe why I don't like beards. Anyway, it's happening, so we'll see where it goes. So a few things for this morning. I know that I'm not a psychologist, but we deal with, everybody does, right, in conversation. Tons and tons of psychological ideas, psychological discussions. It's the kind of conversation everybody thinks they can have. And frankly, why can't we? There are a lot of psychologists who are just humanities degree graduates. They don't necessarily know more than someone who's got a degree in bullshit like, social anthropology or language or poetry or, lesbian dance theory. So I don't have a whole lot of respect out of the box for people who have humanities degrees. I say that as someone who has one. So I'm allowed to be ironic about it. Psychiatry, different thing. You have to be a doctor. You prescribe medicine. That's why I love having Chris Szabo on. And as you know, Dr. Hanan is also a doctor of psychology. So it's different when you get to master's and doctor level. So that I'm totally for. Only thing is, I got thinking the other day about how psychologists, psychiatrists, and the entire pharmaceutical industry has started to make money out of, and they haven't just started, they've been making money for decades, for generations, out of making people feel like they're not mentally healthy or okay just because they're not happy all the time. So what I mean is, if you determine that the norm is that you should be perfectly happy, bouncy, wake up in the morning feeling good, go to sleep at night feeling great, in between smile, dance, have a great day, it occurs to me that that isn't actually what life is. It's also not what life serves up to most people. So we're made to feel bad if we are not happy all the time. Yet happy should not be considered the default. And again, I know I'm treading in dangerous territory here because there are people who've studied this their whole life long. There are people who've put together research papers on this. There are people who have, taken medicine their whole life to feel good about being unhappy for most of the day or week or month or year or life. And the reality is that life is a pretty fucking difficult roller coaster for all of us. I don't know anyone who has one of those charmed existences. I don't personally know anyone where everything has always been terrific, where all the things have always gone their way, where they wake up feeling happy and they go to sleep feeling happy, and in between the whole day, they're always happy. And yet we are told if you're anything but perfectly happy all the time, you've got a problem. You need to be on meds. You need to see somebody. You need to evaluate your life. There's something wrong, etc., etc. So I got to thinking about this, and it made no sense to me at all that somewhere along the journey, human beings who were studying the mind decided that anything outside of happy was diseased, there was a problem there. And everything that was happy, everything that was, excitable, that was considered the default. Now, as someone, and I've spoken about this in the show before, as someone who really is happy most of the time, I don't think that that is the case for most people. I'm very, very lucky. I genuinely feel like, I was born with a brain chemistry that I'm hugely reticent to play with, which is why I don't, indulge in substance abuse or any of that stuff. I'm terrified of upsetting the mess. Sorry, not the mess, the mix of chemicals and turning it into a mess in my brain. I love the way I feel, and I'm very lucky to be, and I do believe it's luck, because it's a combination of genes, environment, resources, the circumstances, so family, friends, good relationships, material comfort, all of that stuff. Some people have no control over those things because sometimes through no fault of their own, and they're not happy, right? And they somehow think, oh, that's a problem. I need to be on antidepressants. And I bring all this up because this amazing thing happened the other day in the world of psychology, which people may or may not know about, but psychiatry and psychology in this case. They've decided to be very honest about, for the first time ever, the chemical theory of depression. You know how you and I have been told for years that seriously depressed people have too little serotonin, and the reason that they are depressed and they feel depressed is because of the serotonin deficiency. And they've been treating that with SSRIs for 20, 30, 40 years. And it turns out, and this is a study which I'm sure the pharmaceutical companies were not in a hurry to have published. Turns out that actually they have never sufficiently demonstrated a link between serotonin deficiency and depression. It's actually never been proven that that is the cause of so many people being put on antidepressants. Now, as much as I am an amateur in this world, I don't understand any of it. I have nothing but a pedestrian's opinion about all of it. It suddenly occurred to me when that was published that there may be all kinds of things that we treat as diseases these days, that we treat as problems that need a medical solution. We medicalize things which actually might not be problems. They may just be part of the human condition. Other things may be addictions. There are probably addictions that are really bad for you. We know, we've discussed on the show a million times, how some people are addicted to exercise. Some people are addicted to work. You get work addicts, and society has no judgment in a negative sense for people who are addicted to work. So you have to be really careful when you decide what the parameters are for a problem or for an malady, something that needs a solution. And I feel like there may be many other areas that in the future are revealed as being things that we've considered problems, which actually are not. They're just part of the human condition. I've never been chemically depressed, so I don't know what I'm talking about in that respect. But I don't believe, contrary to this lived experience idea that everybody's throwing around these days, that you actually have to experience something in order to be able to objectively assess it. That's wildly and demonstrably untrue. Just because someone has experienced something does not give them any more grounds to be able to evaluate it objectively. In fact, you could argue that objectively they have less ability to evaluate it because your subjective experience makes you think that you have more information and intel and data and relevant, useful kind of inputs than people who are looking at it objectively from the outside. I mean, you can look at something like alcoholism, for example. You don't have to be an alcoholic to see it in other people. You don't have to be a gambling addict in order to pick up that other people are a gambling addict. And I feel like these days in society, there's such a premium put on lived experience because people want to feel special. They want to feel important. They want to feel like they have some understanding and some knowledge and some insight into things, which frankly, they might have none. A lot of people just exist and a lot of people develop in a completely organic and not particularly engaged way. So you could be going through something and you're actually completely hopeless at describing what you're going through. There are many, many people I can think of just in my own life who have no ability to evaluate the world based on experience because their ability to articulate that experience is much reduced. So if you are dealing with a depressed person, for example, but they can't really describe, maybe they don't have the language, maybe they don't have there's a certain amount of creative disposition that has to come to the fore if you describe something accurately. Maybe they can't do that. And I keep thinking that all of this stuff, when you look at it objectively from the outside, makes people's personal experiences seem less and less valuable a research tool. And it turns out it's not just your own experience, but even the experience of the objective scientists that isn't necessarily the most perfect tool for evaluating this stuff. Hence, again, this new and developing theory that actually a lot of depression isn't caused by the lack of serotonin, that psychiatrists and psychologists have told us for most of my adult life is the cause. So we can get into that. We can talk some more about it, but I just wanted to get that off my chest this morning. There are a couple of stories in the news I also want to look at today, so let's go to some of those. It's Friday, so we don't want to get too heavy, and I certainly don't want to get too political. A lot of people here saying some funny things in the comments about how, hang on a second, my biggest disease, here we go, Corona's boring, is the government. They're addicted to my money. I hope someone makes a pill to take it away soon. Oh, if only, right? I mean, you're not going to get rid of them. They're part of your life, whether you like it or not. Tracy says some mental diseases are chemically based, while some are neurological, where your neurotransmitters are misfiring. But isn't that chemistry? Tracy, I'm not sure where you're drawing a gray distinction in a black and white world. That doesn't really figure for me, but I kind of know what you're aiming at. Theron says, I need to set boundaries all the time because other people's shit overwhelms me. It's all about energy transfer. I got in trouble because at the time I was studying psychology. Well, you don't want to be anyone's psychologist unless you're being paid. Dr. Hanan will tell you that. 100%. I've always thought that psychiatrists are drug pushing addicts themselves. Well, again, you got to be careful not to generalize because there are people who got into this and who've studied it and who know a huge amount about how the human mind works. Of course, we never know all of it. We still don't know a tenth of what we're supposed to know about the brain, as opposed to the way we know, for example, how the liver works, the heart, the spleen, even the kidneys. The brain is still a mystery to humans. We haven't completely figured that shit out, and we won't during our lifetime. Exercise definitely seems to have proved itself as a technique to ward off depression, says Monique. I think it has, but that has to do with something that a lot of people have brought up this morning, actually, which I think is a very good point. Purpose, meaning. If you don't have anything to do, if you don't have anything to look forward to, if you don't have anything to live for, yes, you're gonna get depressed. I hate to break it to you, but that's just the beginning of your misery. You have to have something to live for. Could be your kid, Could be your wife, girlfriend. It could be your job. It could be a combination of those things. It could be a passion project, a hobby. It could be pretty much anything. But if you have no reason to wake up in the morning, you're buggering around. Your life is going to be terrifically fucking unhappy. Propaganda says it's because you're single. I wonder. Corona's Boring says 2 concertas 3 times a day will turn that frown upside down. Jesus. 2 concertas 3 times a day. I've only ever taken concerta when I was studying. And this is long after varsity. It's like when I had to study for a course, for example, that I was doing. And that shit like keeps you awake. If you're taking 3 times a day, 2 of them 3 times a day, Corona's Boring, you must be buzzing like a fucking car battery. Derek says, I'm a social worker. Do you want to insult me too? Sure. Why not? Fortunately, these days, says Parallel Parking, if you are not happy, there is another TikTok to watch. Well, I can't wait for you to hear this interview with Johan Hari, who came into the studio on Tuesday. And we talked for probably an hour, maybe a little bit more, about focus and about paying attention, something which humans are struggling with more than ever in the year 2022. And I think it's something that a lot of people are powerless to resist. This idea of, screens, being addicted to screens, it's a major, major problem. In the very beginning of his book, Johan Hari talks about his godson who is addicted to screens and how he tackles that with him as someone who cares about him, right? And what it actually does, he observes this from, the point of view of being someone who cares, but he also observes it as a writer. So he writes about it like somebody who, for example, would be, taking down notes. These are his behaviors because he's on a screen the whole time. This is how his concentration span has dropped. This is what he does when he's bored, anxious, lonely, sad, grabs the phone, starts looking at the screen. And Johan talks about actual, and this is what I love about this book, by the way, besides the storytelling, which is immaculate, he also talks about the way that he has figured you can lower your dependence on technology and on distraction. Like he talked about, for example, the average person doing a job of work, if you're distracted by a WhatsApp, by someone coming and talking to you while you're involved in a task, a screen with the news on, or something else, he says it takes you 23 minutes to get back to where you were in the task, to get the level of mental acuity and engagement that you were at. This is why when people say to you, oh, you didn't reply to my message, what are you, too busy? Your answer should be yeah, because even though it'll take me 2 seconds to reply to your stupid WhatsApp, it's going to take me 23 minutes to get back into the flow that I was in while I was doing really valuable work. So in other words, don't respond to the messages just because they come through. People can wait. It'll be fine. I love this focus feature on my phone. I don't know if you found it yet or whether you use it. I think we discussed this briefly with Lebang the other day. But if you go onto your phone, there's a new iPhone anyway. There's a new feature called Focus. And you can set up different ones. Holiday, family, work, whatever it might be. And you can actually choose which apps will be able to send you notifications and which people will be able to send you notifications. And the rest will just quietly go about their business. They won't buzz. It won't appear on the screen. You'll be completely removed from that stuff for the time that you've decided to be on that focus profile. So try it out. Tracy said, oh, here we go. Carl's having a go at Derek, the social worker. Says, I used to work with Derek. That fat little bitch is not a social worker. Give him no sympathy. Love it. Our audience, the meanest people in the world. Hey, Ben.
Hey, Gareth. How you doing?
Good. How's the beard coming along?
Yeah, pretty good hair. It's getting
Really?
thicker. People are noticing. It's just I think this is who I am now. I'm going to stick to it. Summer, winter, whatever. I'm bearded.
I don't know. By Friday next week, I'm gonna have enough. I think I'll be over it. You can carry on doing it
But
if you want to, but nah,
but
I'm gonna be
have
done.
you got a big bristly beard? Like yours is quite coarse, right?
It feels bristly. I mean, I've never had facial hair, so ever since I can remember, the longest it's got is now, ever.
Yeah, likewise. So
So
we
yeah,
both on personal best, but mine is like it's quite soft hair. So I mean, we all have these different things,
no,
right?
it's not bristly. Yeah, mine feels like oh, what's the way to describe it? Almost like a Jack Russell's hair would.
Yeah, okay, so bristly-ish.
Bit bristly, yeah, I suppose. G Star wants to know, am I drinking a beer? No, it's this is not a beer. This is San Pellegrino mineral water. That's what that is. Ooh, Italian mineral water. How fancy. So Ben and I actually are planning a bit of a day tomorrow. You are going to teach me to enjoy rugby without actually
Yeah.
watching rugby.
Well, I mean, obviously you can watch. That's one of the things. But no, I mean, like the thing about watching rugby is getting around people at a certain time of the day where there's something going on. So even
We've done
though
this
you don't like
before. I
the game,
mean, I've watched rugby with you before, and in fact, I was with you and your brother the one day, and we went out to this place in Joburg and had an awesome time.
yeah,
Right?
you completely outed me. So that game was against the All Blacks and we won. So I'm kind of thinking you're the lucky charm, and that is
Okay.
why I'm putting this together so the
There
Springboks
we go.
can beat. Look how patriotic I am. I'm manipulating my friends to the will of the win.
All right. So you and I and a couple of other people. At this point, it sounds like quite a crowd. It's like we've got 10 people or something. We're all going to go watch it together, and we will report back next week Friday about how it goes. Because my problem is I really don't care about the game. So I'll have fun conversations. I'll order drinks. I'll have something to eat. I'll talk nonsense. So I have fun anyway. You don't have to worry about me. It's not like
Yeah,
you've
yeah,
done this
sure.
before. But
Obviously, but
the
I mean, this
rugby itself is just an excuse to get together, right?
it is, and at the same time, it's kind of like a free show because people react to what happens in the field. So normally, when you go to a bar, everyone's just talking and just being. Whereas now, because the rugby's
Right.
on, everyone's playing a role in this fantastic soap opera of Saturday South African life. And this is one of the reasons why I love sports so much.
It does bring people together. I mean, there's a huge social value to this stuff.
Yeah.
Massive.
So, Gareth, I just want to touch on that thing that you were talking about before I got on here about being distracted,
Focus.
not being able to focus. Wow, this has
Mm,
been such a revelation to me to like really audit the days. And I just got to
mm.
say to everybody who still sends voice notes out of
Oh God.
choice, you
Oh
are a
God.
bunch of dicks. You're a bunch of dicks.
Okay.
It's
There are
so
rules.
demanding. It's so
Let's just talk
demanding.
about this. Let's talk about the rules of voice notes. And there are a couple of people who are serial offenders in my life. You must never send a voice note unless you are driving or for some reason you cannot type. Like you've been tied up by a dominatrix, or
Yes.
you've had your arms and hands chopped off by a Saudi crown prince. There's no reason that if you can type, you're just too lazy and you decide to send a voice note. So number one, only send a voice note if typing is completely not an option. Because also people can't always listen to a voice note. You can always check a message if it's
Exactly.
typing and
Always.
ignore it. Yeah. So I don't even like to receive messages based on everyone else's timeline. I like the idea that this author, Johan Hari, was telling me about, that you go into these focus modes and that you put your phone into, well, I think they call it a case safe. It's like this plastic thing that you put your phone in. It's like a prison for a phone, and you set a
Yeah.
timer on it. So he will put
Yeah.
it in for like 2 minutes or 2 hours or a whole day, depending on what he's got to do. And then his phone is literally trapped in this thing. The only way to get it out, if it hasn't run out of time, and you decide on the little thing on the top how long you want to put it in the prison for, is you have to break the thing and you have to buy a brand new one. So it's not a great idea for just wasting money and being stupid. But voice notes, just to go back to that, under a minute, essential. In fact, under 30 seconds, is preferable. Am I right?
Yeah, exactly. But it all just comes back to the fact that your hands have been compromised in some way or another. So unless you've been Khashoggi'd or you're driving, I think those are the two main rules we got going here. But if you're having a conversation, and it's like during the day, so right now, actually, a friend of mine is now trying to message me, and he's sending voice notes. It's like, no, and like they're 5, 7, 10 seconds. It's like you can type that. You really
Yeah.
can, because I can't get to that now for an hour because it requires everything of me to not focus on this voice note. It's just rude. It's
Well, also,
inconsiderate.
I mean, most of the time, if you're going to have a voice note, please, for God's sake, let it just be information. But I've always felt this way about phone calls too. They're a very invasive thing. I've never liked phone calls. I never like talking to someone on the phone for more than 10 minutes. And that's people that I have important things to talk about. The person I've probably spent the longest with on the phone in my life is my business partner, right? And we talk about mostly business. So that would make sense. I can understand that. I can make that kind of time commitment, and it doesn't feel like I'm being distracted or abused. If people, and I know it's different, again, men and women are different, and this is a big generalization, but women love to talk. They love to catch up, love to shoot the breeze. They like to find out, how was your day? What did you get up to? How's this one? What's going on with that one? Is everybody okay? All that kind of shit. Like, I'm not interested in that. If I'm with you in person, if I'm actually talking to a living human being and they're in the same room as me, cool, we can have those conversations. And I'm not disinterested unless you're a complete like zero to me. So I'll have those conversations, but not on the phone. The phone is for information.
Yeah. So propaganda makes a decent point here about the fact that you don't have tone in text. So voice
Yeah.
notes allow you to have tone or texture to all your messages. Yeah,
Right.
I kind of get that. A few months ago, when I was still on dating apps, some girls would just open up with voice notes. Now, wasn't sure what to take of that. I thought, like, confident, that's pretty much what you look for in a person, but also kind of annoying because now you've already heard these people talk. So, like, the mystery is gone. They generally had pretty whiny voices and they were like minute long. It's like, fuck, this already feels like hard work.
Yeah, Gord Laws is a major. He's a criminal in this respect because he sends these long. I call them podcasts. We discussed this on the show years ago when he used to send them. We used to play them on the show. Poor Gord, he didn't know that his personal voice notes to me were going to be played on the show. But that's actually a great way to get people to stop. You don't have to have your own podcast to do this, but you just like play it back to them. You say, "Have you heard how long this is?" And you actually hold it to them and go, can you bear to listen to this for like fucking 3 minutes? Because I can't. 30 seconds. Cut off. There's no need.
Nah,
If it's that
it's a social
important,
dump.
if it's really important, you rather just go and see the person. These days, if you make the investment, because let's face it, petrol's expensive. Nobody needs to go somewhere unless they need to go somewhere. So if you actually are with people, you spend the time, you're in their company, you're having conversation. To me, that is an investment in each other. You're actually taking the trouble. And I think it's a big deal. And you only do that for your friends, people you really care about, relationship people, family, your top sort of 20% of all the people you know. And even that's a stretch. Otherwise, you're wasting money. You're wasting money because these days it is not worth driving to a place to see people unless you either have business with them or you really care about them. Full stop.
So
I mean, I'm
basically, that's
preaching to
how.
the choir.
Yeah,
I'm preaching to the choir with you because you don't do this. You don't go and see anybody unless they're really important to you.
yeah. I'm trying to work on that, but yeah, that's basically the last 5 years of my life. So I see.
Linda says voice notes are annoying, especially if you work in an open plan office.
Exactly,
Totally agree.
and most people do. Like, I have an office, albeit a pretty modest one, but so few people have offices nowadays. And you want to send voice notes? Fuck off. I see a message here, guys, because I'm just catching up. Parallel Parking says that Jane has outed me as a shallow employee. What is that about?
Wait, let me just find this quickly.
627. What is that
Oh, wow.
old wisdom trout been saying about me now?
Oh no! So we had Jane on. I think it was Wednesday with Simpiwe and Ryan. And she was on because she was looking for a part-time job for Mondays, Wednesdays, and Fridays. So I thought it'd be fun to have her on the show. And also, Jane never really minces her words. She doesn't like a lot of people. A lot of people don't like Jane. She didn't say anything particularly horrible about you. She just said that she didn't like the fact that you that you went off the show and now you've come back. Jane, she had this problem with Sia. She had this problem with Simpiwe. Basically, if you work with us and you're there every day and then you go away and then you come back, even if it's on a part-time basis, like you're on the show on Fridays, she doesn't approve of that at all. Like she sees you come in and record your own show that you're doing, which you must give a plug to in a minute. And she's like, there's Ben. He's come crawling back, that kind of shit. Jane sees things in a very binary sense with that. Loyalty is a massively important thing to her. And she always sees it as if once you've left, you must fuck off. You're not allowed back. That's the way she sees the world.
I would love for someone to give up a few years of their life to actually do like a full-on psychology thesis on Jane.
An analysis on Jane. Oh my God.
It would be groundbreaking and at the same time damning towards the human race. The person would probably commit suicide, but it'd be quite a piece of work.
They'll kill themselves. So Kapamba says exactly what is the basis of this interview with Johan Hari, which we will put out next week. What an interesting guy, huh? And what a great book. Kapamba says, I use the fuck out of my focus modes because my work tends to follow me home. This week I bought a lockbox in which I lock my phone at night until the morning. That's such a good move. That is properly taking care of yourself. And you will reap enormous benefits. They've actually measured how the attention span of adults has deteriorated in the last 40 years. They've actually monitored a whole lot of people over a period of, say, 40 years. And they've watched how their ability to concentrate has got less and less and less. And of course, a huge part of this is, but it's not the whole part, social media and devices and screens and all that shit. But apparently, according to the smart experts on this stuff, they say it's been happening for at least the last 3 generations, which is really interesting. So probably started with your grandparents. And it would have started because the village mindset, the idea that, you only really knew a small handful of people and you didn't even know them that well. But they were the only source of information once. Most people couldn't read. So you didn't know about what was going on in, Borneo or in California or in Venezuela. You only knew what was going on in your own village. So there's this information overload, and that's really started happening only in the last 100 years or so. And it's really affected people quite badly because our brains, despite the incredible opportunities that technology and information represents, our brains can only process a certain amount of stuff in a certain amount of time. We're just not capable of more. And you can only really think about one thing at a time, no matter how you might be one of those people who thinks you can multitask, right? They're those people who think they can do 10 things at once. They can, like, while they're on the phone talking to someone, they can also draw a picture, or they can, I don't know, type up a reply to an email. You think you can, but you're actually not doing either very well. You can't. So, okay, a couple of comments here that I think we need to address. Psychologists love depression. They relegate everything to it. I have LL, which is not enough comment space to explain. Ask Dr. Hanan. I was only correctly diagnosed in 2018. Every doctor before said it was depression. What is LL, though? I don't know what that is, Sanella, so you've got to explain that to me. Theron says, I'm trying to avoid WhatsApps unless it's for work. Voice notes become way too time-consuming. Absolutely. Voice to text, says Parallel Parking, will completely remove typing by 2025. Typing will then be a cancel word because it means putting people into categories, which is apparently also very racist. Let's leave this alone. I don't want to spend the whole morning talking about stuff that I've already spoken about in the first half hour. But
yeah, Gareth, what you were saying about generations, their attention spans. This week I started watching this incredible show on Netflix. I haven't watched TV much in the last month or two, And
Hmm.
Netflix has got this show called Trainwreck Woodstock '99. It is exactly what the name says. It's the biggest train wreck of humankind, probably in our lifetime, actually. So
It's all
we all
right.
know the original.
Woodstock back in '69 was this
Yeah.
enormous music event. It was, Jimi Hendrix, Janis Joplin. There were all these incredible bands. It was the greatest music festival ever, and people say it's never been surpassed. The quality of the talent on the stage alone was spectacular, but it was also like a big hippie thing. It was like the apex of hippiedom, because
Yes.
people were living in this mud and filth and squalor. They were all dancing around with no clothes on, having like wild sex with each other in tents and smelling disgusting. And like it was peak hippie. Am I right?
Well, it was kind of like where Burning Man's essentials essentially come from when you think about it, because there
Mm.
were free kitchens, people were sharing decent, softish drugs, and there was
Yeah.
no aggression or violence. And there was a time where people were culturally coming together to express themselves. So the one of the co-founders obviously was young back then, and he decided that his kids' generation needed a Woodstock.
Oh
Boy, was
God.
he fucking wrong. So, like, this documentary is so good. It's 3 parts. I've only watched the first two. I don't want to give away too many spoilers because you have to unpack what an absolute disaster this thing is. It's like, as the name suggests, it's a train wreck. You can't help but look, but it's all
Oh
going
wow.
so badly. So, when you think '69, the culture was of peace and love and harmony and
Hmm.
people trying to work together, all this kind of stuff. 1999 was the time of American Pie, frat boy apex humor, Fight Club the movie,
Yeah.
all these angry bands like Rage Against the Machine, Limp Bizkit, Korn.
Yeah.
So so you can see where I'm going with this. Like the sort of vibe going into this thing wasn't exactly ever going to be peace, love, and all this kind of crap. They were trying to do that, and now the place that they had it wasn't some beautiful woodland glen, foresty, rolling hills place. It was an
Hmm.
ex Air Force base. So think
Oh.
loads of concrete, like horrible
Oh.
buildings. It is
Oh.
terrible, and then you add the hottest days of July in New York State. So you got 250,000 people in a hot asphalt scenario. You've got angry bands on stage telling the youth to go and fucking break things. It all becomes the most giant disaster. I can't believe I didn't. Okay, I was 17 at the time, so I probably didn't get a lot of news back then. But this documentary is the biggest train wreck. It's so like you watch this and you just think, oh my fuck, how did this happen? How did the army not get called in? How did the people survive?
See, I knew that this had happened, but I must be honest with you, I paid very little attention. And it happened during our lifetimes, and it happened while I was doing a radio show. So I should have been, I mean, I was on varsity radio at the time. I was still studying on campus, but I should have known about this, right? And
Yeah,
I
well,
didn't
that's
know any of the detail. So did they have actual footage of what happened as
so
well?
much. No, it's well documented. Okay, so going back to what made Woodstock so great, it was like not for profit. It literally was a social movement. Woodstock
Hmm.
'99 was like commercialism at its
Oh,
ugliest. So
wow.
so like it's obviously hugely hot. Okay, so hydration is a
Hmm.
massive thing. You weren't allowed to bring in your own water, but they would charge you $4, $4 back then in 1999. If you were to go to 7-Eleven, it would cost you like 65 cents. So they were literally fleecing you. It was like $9. Everything was 4 times the price. So they had you there, and now they were just shaking you down. So people were angry about that. But then the, the whole culture of like every girl got harassed. Basically, there was sexual
Yeah.
assaults left, right, and center. The MTV crew were broadcasting this thing, and people were throwing stuff at them. Like so many different stages. The stage was just full with plastic bottles, and people were just breaking stuff all around. And then literally all hell broke loose because of the fact that it was just the most disgusting exploitation of everything. So the party goers felt they were being exploited. The organizers were exploiting them in many, many ways. And they just revolted, and mosh pits were popping up. The bands were just going crazy. It was like
Hmm.
an apocalyptic setting, and they have footage of absolutely every moving second of it.
Oh my God. All right. It's called Woodstock 99.
Yeah,
Is that it? Oh my
it's hugely
God.
tragic. And if people ever say, "Oh, it's so shit in 2022." You get these time zones, right? So Woodstock was the original one was so caring and peace, love, and all that kind of stuff. In 1999, if you would think there was toxic masculinity now, back then is when it was at its prime. I think we've come
Yeah.
on so far since then. People were fucking disgusting back then. And like you have to watch it to appreciate how good things are right now. I think we've almost found an equilibrium where people know how to treat each other and we know how to act. And I know this sounds a weird thing to say because people are so fucked up nowadays. But go back to Woodstock 99 and get a snapshot of how bad it actually was. It's so bad.
It's hilarious. Someone was telling me, a friend of mine who went to one of these European festivals like Tomorrowland or whatever, that they always charge you an absolute fortune. And then a friend of mine who's in the events business said to me, but that makes sense because you're paying for the whole event, right? And your ticket price doesn't cover the cost of like the stage and all of that shit. So they have to make money off of drinks. And he was telling me that at some of these festivals, you can't buy tap water. You can't get just tap water. And when you go to wash your hands in the bathrooms, they actually put salt in the water so that you have to
Yeah.
buy mineral water, which is wild. It never occurred to me that that's what people might do. So in other words, if you're a cheapskate, you might go to the bathroom and drink from the tap, right? Apparently you
Well, it's
can't do
also
that at these festivals. They don't allow you to do it because they're worried about people getting sick from the water or whatever. But that's an excuse too. They just want to sell more bottles of water at an exorbitant price, like 9
yeah,
euros or
it's kind of the same in those big clubs in Ibiza because people generally go there and they're taking drugs, so
right.
they want water. Water is the
They
most
sell more
important
water than they
commodity.
do alcohol. Yeah.
Yeah, because you go in there, and that's another thing about Woodstock '99. They had a rave hanger. So basically,
Wow.
there was like there was the main rock stage where people were like killing each other until midnight, and then everyone sort of like zombies filtered into the rave hangar. It's just it's one of the
Unbelievable.
best things. It's one of the best things I've seen, really, and I'm sure lives were wrecked. But seeing
So this was
250,000
also,
people,
and this was just before the age of mobile phones, right?
yeah, yeah,
99.
and it
So
was
so
still with
Carol
like
Carol says, Ben, episode 3 will knock your socks off. Very tragic indeed. Have you watched all of them or are you just halfway
no.
in?
I've watched 2 episodes. The third one I'll watch
Okay.
tonight. Yeah, so if you're looking for something to watch this weekend, sure,
Yeah.
it's a thing.
Sounds amazing. Okay, I've got to put it on my list of things. Speaking of a list of things to do, Ben sent me a podcast the other day with this guy called Andrew Tate, who I've never heard of. I didn't know who the fuck he was. I had no idea. I had to Google the dude. He claims to be the most Googled person ever, but I don't know that that's true. People always claiming that they're the most famous person on the internet or whatever. But what an interesting guy. So it turns out he's a fighter. He has some pretty wild opinions about, in particular, women, money, human relations, the differences between men and women. That was kind of the gist of it. But Ben sent me this podcast to listen to. I think it was last Saturday, and
Yeah,
I listened to it all in that one day. And we spoke about it later in the afternoon. What an incredible, like, what a deadly, dangerous human being this is. He just mouths off, and some of the stuff he says is exactly the opposite of politically correct. So he's bound to be like napalm to woke people. It's insane, right?
he really is. And I also never heard of this guy since last week. And all the people that
Yeah,
I know who know things about the internet also never heard of this guy. But he has
right.
been this internet sensation because the moment you watch one Andrew Tate video on YouTube, YouTube
Yeah,
will literally send you 17,000. It's almost like I actually have to go and delete YouTube and re-sign in or do something because every video on my home screen now is this guy's face. So
oh, really?
I don't know what business is behind him and his ways, but I found another podcast that he did over a year ago before he obviously became hugely famous and became quite sensationalist. And even the podcast I sent you, I thought was really good. This other one I listened to from over a year ago is before he became so ranty and before he became so incredibly outspoken. His fundamentals and I think really good ideas are still there. If you want to find it on Spotify, it's on the Pomp Show, POMP, Pomp Show.
The Pomp Show.
Yeah. If you listen to it, it's the Pomp Show. And I
go on.
I absolutely just love how succinctly this guy puts the things that we speak about a lot as well. So, like what COVID means to the greater future of humanity, the richest people in the world or the freest people in the world, how he seems to hack life by, it's just so simple the way he says things. And a lot of the things that, a lot of reason why people hate people like him is because no one ever has the balls to do the things that they do. They can never imagine that they can be as rich as him, and they can never be as single-minded as this guy. And obviously, he's a huge narcissist, and people are going to take him in pieces about certain things.
Me, so I honestly had never ever heard him before. It was the first time on Saturday last week that I listened to this. I think it was an hour and a half, 2-hour interview, which was mostly entertaining, but there were parts of it that were just really heavy going, and I didn't enjoy it. And he seems to be like one of those jet engines that kind of fuels itself. Like
Completely.
eventually you can hear that his own hot air is propelling him into the next sentence. It's like, he's totally he's self-obsessed, self-absorbed. But he's also, he does say some really interesting things. One of the things that I thought stuck out is he doesn't let women drive his expensive cars ever. And his reason for that, I thought, was pretty weird, but it kind of makes a bit of sense. And it's going to upset a lot of women this morning. But he says, if a friend of yours, a guy friend of yours, crashes your car, he says, if one of my boys crashed my car, and he's got this funny accent that's kind of half American, half English as well, which is very odd. Then a guy will always say, so if you crashed my car, Ben, you would say, oh, Jesus, I'm so sorry. I wasn't concentrating. I'm going to fix it. I'll pay you back. It's going to take me like a year and a half or whatever. I'll sort this out. If whether or not you're insured, I fucked up. Let me sort this out.
Yeah, I would take it upon myself. I would take it upon myself to fix what I have done completely, 100%.
This guy says women have no honor in that respect. They'll go, oh my God, I crashed your car. I'm so sorry. It was like, this guy came out of nowhere. It wasn't my fault. I don't know what to do. This is such a disaster. Oh, I'm so embarrassed or whatever. But they will not offer to sort the problem out. They will not take personal responsibility for it, which I thought was pretty hilarious. It's not something that a lot of people would agree with. A lot of people actually would say that's bullshit. That's not true. But in my experience, even for little things, let's not say things as big as writing off a supercar, it's kind of, that's about right,
Yeah,
I'm so sorry.
the guys.
I broke that vase. Like I remember there was this one quite pretty girl that I invited to my house once. She broke this thing. She's like, oh my God, I'm so sorry. I don't know what to do. She never offered to repay or replace or fix what she'd done. She took no actual responsibility. She wanted me to know that she felt bad about it, and that was all.
Well, look, there are so many different things to go through with this guy. If you watch some videos, you could watch some of these sensationalist bullshit ones, and you'll hate him. Listen to him on the Pomp Show before you got any ideas or opinions about him. Because I think a lot of the time, to your jet engine analogy, people become very drunk on their own fame and their own hype because they have to create it in order to create the identity which they're looking for. And I totally get that.
It's gonna make me so unpopular, but I even think that's happened with people like Jordan Peterson. I do believe that Jordan has become a little bit self-involved, and I'm not talking about when he, had the benzodiazepine addiction, which he had to sort out, and he was on a major health scare, and didn't do very well. But he's kind of become a little high on his own supply, and I don't mean that he's not making sense. I don't mean that he's not one of the smartest people in the world, because he is. And I love Jordan Peterson, and I've listened to him for years. I've interviewed him. I like the guy very much, and I do think he's doing a lot of good in the world. There are some people who cannot stand him because of his political point of view or because he brings facts to discussion that very often isn't about facts, and that upsets people who don't have the facts themselves. But I do think it happens to a lot of people, including this Andrew Tate guy, is that people just they start enjoying being famous for whatever reason more than thinking about the stuff that made them famous in the beginning that actually mattered to people. They get high on their own supply is the best way to describe it. And it's happened to a lot of people I know, and a lot of people that I listen to and pay attention to. And you just eventually go, this kind of, he's beating the same drum. And this isn't true for Jordan or for this Andrew Tate, who I've only listened to this one podcast of, but it's true for a lot of people. It even, becomes true for friends of yours if you're paying enough attention. The same stuff keeps coming up round and round and round, and eventually it's like, I'm not learning anything.
Well, you also got to think of it like this guy is trying to perpetuate certain information and actions, these kind of things, because he's got businesses that he runs as well. So if you look at a TV show, like if a TV show is quite controversial in season 1, it can't just stay on a level. It has to keep going up and up and up and up. Eventually it'll explode and fall away. So this Andrew Tate guy is exactly that. So that's why I say, only listen to this one podcast about him. Don't get put into the rabbit hole about all these other things. Right. And ultimately, just like Jordan Peterson, take the ideas, never the personality. And I think, and this is exactly why I share podcasts like this with you, because neither of us are looking for role models. Neither of us are looking for best friends. No. But we love we love to challenge things. We love to talk about things because that takes us closer to enlightenment and just being smarter about how people operate. And the way this guy has seen the world, how he's made money, and the way he sees human nature, I think there's some invaluable lessons to learn from what he's about, whether you like him or not. It's exactly the same with Trump. People hated Trump.
Oh, wow.
That they stopped. That they forgot the fact he's another human with ideas who is saying things. But people became so blind with the rage for someone that they despise that they stopped listening to what they're going to say. This always comes back to the saying that we said in the show so many times. Before something must fall, find out why it rose. And this is the thing. Well, if Andrew Tate is the sensation, why?
G.K. Chesterton, who probably wrote more brilliant things down than even Winston Churchill's reputed to have said. You know, that Churchill effect, that any great quote must be attributed to Churchill. G.K. Chesterton is the guy who probably should get more of the credit for those really like snappy, witty sayings. But of course, he lived at a time where there weren't TikTok videos. Otherwise, he would be the most famous person in the world. He said famously, before you break down a fence, find out why it was put up, which is precisely the point that you make here. It is also the essence of being a conservative politically. Conservatives are reticent to break down tradition. They don't break the fence down. They assume it was built for a reason. Whereas progressives will break it down because they believe they'll be able to build something better in its place. Very often they break it down and then don't build anything. And then whether you're keeping something in or keeping something out, it ends up doing exactly that. It comes in or it goes out. So again, this is sensible stuff. All right, it's 7:00. We're going to come back in a little while. We're also going to be joined in a short while by Fiso Nanette, who is a South African comedian, also an actor, best known for winning the first season of SABC1's reality competition Talent Search, So You Think You're Funny, all the way back in 2009. He's originally from Durban, and you will know him from the Pure Monate show, where he was a scriptwriter. He's also been on a number of comedy shows, including one with Kagiso Lediga on Mzansi Magic back in 2010. 2012, he won the Audience Choice Award at the South African Comics Choice Awards, and he is an extremely funny human being. I'm always pleased to meet new and funny people. So we're going to stick around and have some fun with Fiso in just a short while. Also, Borge will be with us a bit later on with some motoring, and Ben and I will be here to keep you company through your Friday morning to start your day. Got hopefully a productive, exciting day ahead of you and a weekend still to come. Loads of stuff to be excited about. Stick around.
This week on the Auto Trader podcast. Because at least with the private sale, or the private buy, should I say, let's not say private sale, the private buy, you get to drive the car. You might, the private seller might let you take the car to a place that does a condition report like we spoke about last week. The private seller might give you more information about the car, give you its access to its service history via the OEM, and more information than you could ever get. So that's why I say the private buy is a better buy than the auction. Catch us every Monday at 9 a.m. on YouTube and on autotrader.co.za.
All right, we are live, cliffcentral.com on a Friday morning. I hope your day's off to an awesome start. We are doing all the things we usually do on a Friday. We've got Borge coming up a little bit later on, George Meany with the Auto Trader podcast. That's going to be happening. And of course, they do a live episode every week. So we want to hear from you on your comments with regard to what else you'd like to hear, who you want on the show, etc. Producers Dory and Simp have been working hard, getting all kinds of exciting people for the next little while, including people who've written amazing books, people who've got amazing ideas, people who've done amazing things. By the way, the other day we had a guy on who is breaking the skipping championship Guinness World Record for, 24 hours of skipping, which sounds ridiculous. But let me tell you, when you actually hear like what this guy is able to do in 24 hours with a skipping rope, it is phenomenal. He's this dude from Pretoria. He's already broken the Guinness World Record for, I think it's 6 hours, or for the longest, 12 hours, I think was his latest one. Now he's going to break the 24-hour record for skipping, which is absolutely insane. Ben is with us this morning. We've also got Fiso Nanette joining us in a short while, so lots of good stuff happening. Let's get talking. It's Friday morning. Thank God, I see Bitcoin is back over $23,000, which is also good news.
Yay!
Well, I mean, listen, any good news on that front would be welcome at this point, right? Like, look how excited about $23,000. I mean, we were bitching when it was $40,000. What I wouldn't do for $40,000 now for a Bitcoin, because I haven't sold mine. So I'm still sitting.
And so you shouldn't, Gareth. I mean, look at everything this last year. Like all the stock markets, inflation, all these kind of things. Everything was going to be shit. And as Andrew Tate says, don't be a pussy. Just believe it. Like we all. Well, I'm gonna say between not talking for ourselves here. We all like the idea of long-term crypto. So you actually can't be a pussy about this and go, "Oh, it's crashing again," because it is. We believe in the long-term play. Back up what we believe in. That's what we say about
and
crypto.
The reason we believe in it is because it's not administered by government, which we don't fucking trust and we don't love. Right?
Yeah. Well, look, it's probably also administered by dodgy people, because where there's money, there's dodgy people. But I prefer this one. I prefer to be the romantic and say crypto is my future, not government.
The other thing that you sent me in the last week, which is worthy of discussion, is a playlist. Ben puts together pretty awesome playlists. Some of them are kind of like house party playlists. Some of them are more like for driving, stuff you want to listen to when you're in a good mood generally. And you're pretty good at this. I think it's a Ben talent. You should maybe put them all up for public consumption. I don't know if you want to do that, but it could be quite fun.
So I sporadically put them on my Instagram profile. If you go into the bounds, you'll see playlists. You'll see a beautiful picture of Michael Bolton. I've got a love songs playlist. some of the greatest love songs.
Brilliant.
I love cheesy love songs. I'm like deep down, because as you know, I'm a massive romantic. These songs are just they're so special because a lot of them are one-hit wonders. Okay, and a lot of people write love songs because it was their one chance of getting laid by like the girl that they always were simping to for their whole life. And this is before simp culture became what it is. And they put their heart and soul into these songs, and you can really, really hear it. No doubt this woman was just never into them, but I love them. I love the story. I love what it's about. It's so cool. I've got probably like 15 hours of playlists that I've curated over the years.
That's awesome.
And it's just so many time and places for them.
That's very cool. You've got to go and check them out. So if you want to if you want to have a look at Ben's playlists, it's probably worth your while. I would recommend them thoroughly. Then somebody sent this link to a book which you can buy as a really terrible gift. In fact, let me give credit to whoever sent this to me. So Matthew sent me an email yesterday and said, "Hey Gareth, you're often on the lookout for this kind of stuff as a joke Christmas gift. This is probably a bit pricey, but still ew." And then he includes a link to Take-A-Lot. Believe it or not, this is on Take-A-Lot, right? And it is called Natural Harvest, a collection of semen-based recipes for 589 ront. That's quite expensive.
Well, I mean, this person's taking.
I'm not going to buy that as a joke gift. Sorry.
People are taking the piss with this in a couple of ways. Firstly, the price, but this person's. if you go into this link, you are so horrified. But the fact is, he's got 2 books. This isn't just the only one. He decided he decided to follow up this bestseller with a bartender's guide to semenology, as in every cocktail needs a little bit of jizz in it. And if you go into the if you go into the description, it says here, the ultimate handbook for mixologists looking for an ingredient that go beyond exotic fruit juices and rare spirits. That's always been enough for me. Anyway, driven by a commitment and passion of the freshly harvested ingredients, semenology pushes the limits of classic bartending. It didn't need to be pushed. Semen is often, this is the best part, semen is often freshly available behind bar counters.
Jesus, what kind of bars is this guy hanging around in?
Yeah, if you're milking bartenders, I bet. For me, the big story is this author. Where did what the fuck?
What's the guy's name? Just put it on the screen again. His name is Paul Fortenhauer. Paul Fortenhauer. He must be German, right? I mean, the Germans are the freakiest people ever. A collection of semen-based recipes by Paul Fortenhauer. Ships in 14 to 16 working days. Lucky us. Free delivery available. 589 ront. And if you have Discovery Miles, it's even cheaper.
Well, there we go. That's how you use your Discovery Miles. Now that Kalula's gone bust, you can buy semen recipes. But I've got so many questions here.
Matthew, who listens to the show, sent that to me. You're a sick individual, Matthew. I will not be buying a copy of that, even as a gag gift. What, for 589 Rand? That's an expensive gag gift. Gag gift shouldn't cost more than $50. Sorry.
It's a gag gift in the truest sense, because people would vomit out of that. But exactly. I would love to know what the thing is. Like, is this person making this for general consumption, or is this just their highest form of affection? It's like, when at a work function, I'll just make margaritas. But when you come around to my place, I will give you a tequila sunrise with jizz. Like, is it a form of affection, or?
Can I tell you what I think? When humanity starts looking for, when it's not enough to just drink normal drinks at a bar, and you have to start doing things like this, we really bring that asteroid on. Let's just wipe humanity out like the dinosaurs. It's time for us to go. If that's what we have to do,
we peaked.
I think we've peaked.
We've peaked.
That's right. So this is not and also. I think that it's a little bit apart from being disgusting and gross, it's deeply disturbing that there probably are people in the world who have had semen in their drinks without even knowing it, right? Like,
yeah,
you know how, for example, waiters will like drop a steak on the ground and then not tell a really irritating customer that they did that. I'm pretty sure there's sick men in this world who have put shit into women's drinks without telling them.
Yeah.
I'm sure it's
in the movie, going back to our Woodstock 99 reference in the first hour, in the movie American Pie, pale ale, that was got semen in a beer. And then in Fight Club, Brad Pitt's character was talking about how he used to jack off into the soup at banquet halls he used to work in.
Oh,
but I'm
never ordering. Beth says I'm never ordering a cocktail again. Yeah, and the fact that cocktail has the word cock in it is also pretty disturbing, actually.
But
Now,
But I mean, obviously, you know the origin of cocktails in bars, public houses, and stuff. Whatever was left in the bar was put into this basically this massive glass vat, whatever. And if you couldn't afford a beer, you'd have the tail of the cock. So you'd have a little shot of whatever the residue booze of the
really,
drink
is
was.
that where it comes from?
That's where cocktail comes from. We think it's so glamorous, but no, it was literally the bars would wrap up, put all the stuff in the glasses, and then it was like the cheapest booze you could get. you would have the tail of the cock, basically.
Oh, that's disgusting. I've never been a big fan of like cocktails. The only time I ever have them is when I'm on holiday, and like, you know, that first drink when you're at like a
time and
beach
place.
or that kind of, that's the kind of thing that you do. But otherwise, I could give a shit about cocktails. I'm not that interested in them. So now you've just put me off them forever. Don't mess with people who handle your food, says Jean. That's exactly right. Just the movie Waiting with Ryan Reynolds in it. Oh yeah. Don't be mean to waiters is very good life advice. I wish that was something that they taught at school. Because if more people were just respectful to waiters, they wouldn't be even thinking in the realm of doing horrible things to your food. You don't know what's happening behind closed doors. Same goes for your drinks, right? Ruth says margaritas can hit the spot, or a pina colada. Well, yes, absolutely. Hey, by the way, Tuesday's a public holiday, right? So if and it's irritating as hell because Monday's a normal working day, so you know most people won't be able to take that day off. A lot of people taking a long weekend. So if you are one of those people who's got Monday off and you're taking a long weekend, tell us what you're up to. We want to know. And teach us how you can plan your schedule right at the beginning of the year. There are people who are very good at this. They can take off 3 days and end up with like 5 or 7. You know, especially April. April's the best rate. It's jackpot. Okay. Ruth says long weekend for me. I planned it. Excellent. Yeah, you see, that's very clever.
Ruth's the planner. Ruth's a massive planner. I always think she's doing life right.
Mm-hmm. You were saying what do you got planned for the Tuesday?
I know. For this Tuesday, I'm probably going to be working because I got videos to make. But I'm hugely excited by the fact that I'm so organized this year. So in 2 weeks, I'm going to Australia. So I'm going to be in Australia for quite a long time, actually, like almost 3 weeks. So if I do the show that time, it'll be at a weird time for me. And then I've already got accommodation holiday planned for September, November, and January of 2023 already.
Wow.
I'm so excited about this. Yeah, because
very
it's always
organized.
places I want to go to. And the whole thing of like people always put the stuff off, and then it's bullshit. You go book the places you want to go, take the hit on the money, and then your life should be built around that. Same with the public holidays. When you get to work in January, also, make the plan.
If you book the holidays now, you pay for the plane tickets or the accommodation or whatever now. It's the cheapest it'll ever be, right? So you know that because money in 3 weeks' time is not worth what money is now. So if you spend it now, you're getting the maximum value out of it. That makes perfect sense. Of course, if you don't have any money to spend, it's not sensible, but we're not here to give you financial advice.
No, that's not one of our strong suits ever.
It's not our thing. That's not what we do. I'm going to get Fiso on in a moment or two. Fiso Nanette is a South African comedian who's going to be joining us for a little bit. He's also got a show on, so take note. You talk about booking things in advance. You want to get in front of this. Theatre Marcellus, Emperor's Palace, 27th of August, so end of this month. He's putting on a humorous twist to his somewhat well-known but seldom addressed problem, which many have found themselves in. He says audiences are in for a treat and should expect to hear jokes delving into taxi drivers, politics, and much more. So whether you're someone who has baby mama drama or you're dating someone who has baby mama drama, or in fact are the baby mama who has the drama, this show will have you in stitches. It's called Baby Mama Drama 2. That's Fiso. Hey, Fiso, how you doing, man?
I'm good, man. How are you?
Nice to see you, dude. Tell us about your show, Baby Mama Drama, and like where all of this comes from. This is hilarious.
It comes from the general observation of, as the title suggests, it's in the title. It's the observation of how people normally behave. when they have baby mamas or when they are actually the baby mamas. There's normally those unnecessary fights and those.
So you've gone dead. I don't know what happened to your mic. We can't hear you. Let's just take him off there and see if we can fix that. Simpiwe, if you can just get on it and check him out, see what's going on over there. All right, back to where we were, Ben, because I'll wait to bring Fiso back in here.
Yeah, I'm having a rest because that's what winters are for.
That's breakfast, right?
No, breakfast is 4 eggs, an avocado, sweet potato, feta, and yeah, that's about it.
You're not just organized with holidays. You got your meals planned out as well.
Gareth, I am the person I've always wanted to be. It really hit home, and I'm owning it. I'm living it. I'm enjoying it.
Your best life. Is that what it is? I'm living your best life.
I'm best lifing, and I'm finding out what that means more and more every single day.
I hate that term, living your best life. I mean, it used to be a thing that I thought was quite cool. But the more I think about it, the kind of people who say it all the time are exactly the kind of people who piss me off.
And also who aren't doing it. Yeah, it shouldn't be something that you scream from the rooftops. It's just something you should be doing. Like, it shouldn't be a luxury. It should be the basic.
Action rather than nonsense, rather than words.
Yes, exactly that.
Ruth is being very optimistic here, and I like that. 1 more month, she says, and we will be in spring. Yeah, couldn't agree more, hey? The baby mama cut Fiso's connections, says Jean. That's
exactly
right.
What happened.
How would you feel if you suddenly found out that you had a child that you didn't know about?
Well, I'd be a man and step up to the plate to make it happen.
Really?
That's pretty much, yeah.
But how would you feel, Ben? I'm not saying what would you do, because I'm pretty sure you would take responsibility. But how would you feel if you found out you suddenly had a kid from some baby mama and you didn't know about it? Let's say the kid was 4 years old, and for some reason she just decided to keep it from you.
Yeah, it's a good question, because every guy feels shit about it. Every guy doesn't want this because that was never the plan. Okay, so that's definitely how you feel. Anyone who says differently is a liar. No one's going to be like, oh, what a relief. There we go. I can have a kid now. That's great. Every guy will feel crap.
Mm-hmm. It's expensive. It's frightening. I mean, anyone who's had a pregnancy scare will know about this. Fiso, how many baby mamas have you got?
I have 2.
2? Jesus, that's a lot of admin.
Yeah.
Man. That's also two families, 2 sets of friends, 2 different people you have to pay for like school fees and all of that shit. It's a lot of work, man. You're braver than me,
dude. It's quite challenging, but it's even more challenging if you didn't know about the second family. You just find out.
I'm always amazed at these TV shows. I'm sure you've seen them too. These TV shows where you have these guys, or very rarely, it's normally guys. It's hardly ever girls, and they have like 2 separate families, and they manage to keep both of the plates spinning at the same time. I marvel at that, because I find one relationship hard work. I don't know how guys, like these guys who cheat, or they live this double life where they have like 2 women in 2 different cities, and they manage to keep it going. Just seems to me like so much work.
Dude, cheating is work. Cheating costs a lot of money, because now you must, and energy, because now you must lie to the other one and tell the other one that you are going to work, or make up some kind of an excuse. It's a lot of admin. I don't know how they do it. It didn't happen like that with me.
No, it's too much. In South Africa, we have a lot of situations like that. Obviously, you've got these a lot of South African men who work far from where they grew up, and a lot of them might have moved into cities, so they've got the bit on the side. Ben and I often talk about like the machoshas who, who are part of these guys' lives. And yet, when it's not the machosha and it's the actual wife, then it's a whole different story. Am I right, Ben? We've often spoken about the machoshas.
Yeah, they're everywhere, hey? And guys trouble themselves with too many machoshas. They're sapping.
Yeah, man, it's crazy. And sometimes you can be loyal to your woman and only to find that you are Joseph and she's seeing God on the side.
What a great way of putting it.
Does that ever happen to you?
No, it's never happened. But I'm just saying.
Yeah, I don't know a lot of guys.
Children.
I don't know a lot of guys, even if it's happened to them, who would admit that they were Joseph and that Mary was seeing God.
But the thing is, you can never know. You could be thinking that you are a good guy who's, raising his kid or his kid. Meanwhile, you don't have children.
Yeah, and you can't.
You can never know.
These days, it's harder. Don't you think it's harder to lie now than ever before? Because people leave a trail, a social media trail. They leave there's always like evidence on the internet these days that there wasn't before. I've heard of people who found out in extraordinary ways, like that their boyfriend or girlfriend's been cheating on them because they've seen it in a photograph on someone else's social media. And they're like, you told me you were going to work, but you were in this restaurant on Thursday night. Look, there's the date stamp. The fuck?
Yeah, it is difficult these days, obviously, because of the evidence. It's everywhere. Everyone is filming something as you are out on a date with someone is filming, and then something happens, and then boom, there you are. And then your partner finds out that you were there, and then it becomes chaos. But some people are a bit careful. They are still good with it. They keep it very low profile.
I mean, let's give credit where credit is due. The real professionals are these blessers. I mean, those guys are really good at what they do because they're actually paying, so they can make the rules. So they can actually say to the machosha that she must, I'm being very rude here by calling them the blessee. They can say to them like listen, I'm paying for this. You are not to put this on social media. You're not to tell people that you're at this restaurant with me. I know a guy who he's always like with a different girl. He's a real player. He like lives large, spends a lot of money, takes girls out on dates, has plenty of sex. He's Ben to coin the phrase we use, living his best life. And this guy, you will never see anything on his social media. And he doesn't allow the girls that he's with to post anything either. Like he doesn't want them to show that they're with him because it'll ruin his reputation with other girls.
I don't think it's the blessers. I don't think we can narrow it down to the blessers only being the ones that are discreet about cheating. Because blessers are men. And people who cheat the most are men. Of course. And we as men, we are like that because we don't want to be caught by our main.
Something's gone wrong with your sound again. I'm gonna ask Simpiwe to just sort it out one last time because we got to kind of at least try one more time. But otherwise, I'm gonna let you go off the show because it sounded terrible. I could hardly hear what he was saying.
I would love to know the whole blesser market, how COVID impacted that. Has it formalized it? Has it increased opportunities, decreased opportunities?
I don't know. Off the top of my head, I think it probably would have decreased it because a lot of that is for both parties being seen, right? So if you're not actually at the club ordering bottles with all your, girls around you, and you're the blesser, if nobody knows, what's the point? Like the whole reason a lot of these guys are doing this stuff is because they want to be seen to be the guy who has all the girls. So I reckon
we really should get a machosha in, Gareth. Get someone from the machosha union, a spokesmachosha that wants to come in and just share the state of the nation, really. So many questions, you know. Like, are young Makoshas feeling inspired to join the industry? How
Who are the
things going?
Makoshas? Shop stewards, you know, that kind of thing.
Exactly.
Oh my God. I'm actually kind of excited about this rugby tomorrow. I think it might be fun.
Of course you are, because I think I framed it perfectly well. SA versus the All Blacks.
Hold on.
Playing in Nelspruit.
Let's just be clear. We're not going to Nelspruit. Ben is not, driving me to Nelspruit. That's not the plan. We're just going to watch it. We're going to watch it here in Gauteng. So there's no huge amount of travel involved. But we'll see where it goes from the rugby. I mean, it could end up being quite a party.
Yeah, it will be. It's Saturday at its best, and because it's Nelspruit, I think it'll be quite a high-scoring game. I've got a good feeling about that. The All Blacks have never been shitter. They've lost the series at home to Ireland, and the Springboks also have their own issues. So it's going to be beautiful, beautiful.
All right, here's some insight from Siyabonga. Sia says, my big brother has a blessee, and she used to work with us. I used to say to her, nice hooker heels, and she never caught on. Ruth says, ask Alan Ford to organize. He knows a few Makoshas. He does, actually, because he has them shouting and screaming outside his apartment. By the way, I think we'll have Alan on not this Wednesday coming, but the one after. So he's got an update on the hookers that hang around outside his apartment. Of course, he claims it's got nothing to do with him.
He attracts that stuff. I've spent a day in Cape Town with Alan. He attracts that stuff, whether he likes it or not. He should be the shop steward for the Makoshas.
when was it that you and I were at an event and Alan was there, doing his thing? Can't remember the last time that happened, but you and I were laughing about it. I think it could have been maybe it was the Nedbank Golf Challenge or something.
I'm not sure, but there's been a few.
Jesus,
Alan because he's larger than life in every single way. Like every word seems like there's urgency to it. So he will basically tell you about what the cocktail is that's being served, and you think that something is about to happen, something's about to erupt. We should probably get him that cookbook. I'm sure he'll find a way.
So Sanella says the problem with that guy I was talking about earlier is that he keeps moving on to the next newer, younger, hotter girl. After a while, the previous girls he no longer pays attention to will expose him. Well, I don't know whether that's happened. I haven't actually asked him about it. I mean, he's not like a very close friend of mine, but I've watched him operate, and he seems to have a method, and it seems to work. I mean, maybe he keeps them on side. I'm not sure how that works exactly. But
I have the same questions. I have the same questions because that guy he's probably got means. There's no doubt about that, because you live like that because you have money, or you're a con artist getting money from someone. But what happens? Not that you should ever think this, but what happens when he becomes 50 years old? And you're not.
There's always a price.
No, but the thing is, like mentally, where does that put you? Because you've used girls like dish rags for so long. That what does give you happiness or contentment or that kind of thing? Because even though a lot of people, narcissists in general, don't need that kind of stuff, it's going to hit you like a ton of lead at some stage. And you're so accustomed to hot girls, and it's like a currency to you. It's like a lifeblood to you.
Yeah, it is.
Even when you're really rich, you lose the ability to be attractive, because then you know deep down they're only with you for the money. That guy knows at the moment it's money, status, good looks, adventure, all of those things. I think it's going to be so hard for guys like that when they just know that basically I'm paying for these girls to have sex with me. That must be such a kick in the nuts psychologically.
So if you had to rank, because you just made a little list, and I can't help thinking that one of the conversations that we've had before, I don't even think we've had it on the show, is like if you had to estimate the value of a certain list of things in your life, what would be at the top and what would be at the bottom? Like if I had to say money, adventure, women, sport, freedom, travel, like how would you arrange that list? There's 5 of them. See if you can arrange
that's tough. Well, I think freedom, because that's the most important thing. It's invigorating to be free. It's just something that you can never get away. So that to me is first, second, third, no doubt, all day. There is something that you can never describe, but a certain woman can make you feel, but it's very fleeting. So I don't think you can put it up there in the top 3, but it's just when that hits the straps, it's the best thing for a guy in the world because it validates you. It makes you feel like a superhero. And there's a fair amount of like every guy has this competitive nature about them, right? And they want to succeed and they want to do things like that. And it's a huge
100%.
value thing for guys. You look at a guy who walks into a room with a particularly good-looking woman. Guys sort of envy him or they hold him to higher regard.
Sure.
Then, that person could be like a biophysicist with a Lamborghini out front and has helped 7,000 children have clean drinking water. They don't give a fuck. It's all about the girl they have on their arm. And that's how we operate. So I think freedom, the girl thing hovers around, and money just allows you to have both of those things in abundance. The more money you have, the more freedom you have. The more money you have, the more women are attracted to you, and you get options. And then from there, everything else is kind of trivial. Everything else is just a personal quirk. Like for me, it's sport. Travel is great because it expands you as a person. People who don't travel stagnate and become very cynical. So travel
Totally
travel is an actual like vital need of society. But I think if you get those top 3 correct as a guy, as a heterosexual guy, those are what really get you out of bed.
I can't fault it. Hey, I think you hit the nail on the head. I mean, freedom does come first. That's also now often freedom will be in conflict with the woman thing, because when you're in a relationship,
yes, exactly,
you do give up a certain amount of freedom. It's like anything that really matters to you. You have to give something up to get something else. The cake is only so big for most of the really important things in life. So if you cut half of it for freedom, that means you only got half of it for relationships. And that's not always good enough for some people. They want more than half.
Yeah.
Some girls will not settle for half of the cake. They're like, no, that's not what I'm in this for. I expect more.
Well,
so
as they get older,
is.
As they get older and they feel their value diminishes within the relationship, they'll become more handsy towards that, more demanding towards that. And again, that's another inconvenient truth. But it's spot on.
You know what I always laugh at? You know what I find hilarious, no matter where or when or who, is when someone talks about when someone says, "Oh, my friend Steven or whatever. He's such a nice guy. He has such a dragon for a wife or a girlfriend." Because I've never experienced that, right? So to me, it's always hilarious. Like I can't empathize or sympathize with someone who has a dragon for a girlfriend, because I've never really dated anyone who was that awful that afterwards I described her like that. But I mean, we hear these stories. It's usually in the third person. Someone will say, "Oh, Tom's such a good guy, but oh my God, what a fucking awful girlfriend he's got. She's just the most terrible person." Part of the reason that she might be terrible is that he's such a dick. I mean, that's often the reason, right? Like a woman will sometimes become like that because the guy is so unbelievably terrible to live with, that's the only way she can survive is by becoming a monster.
Yeah, and this is why I find relationships fascinating. This is why I still hold out hope that I'll be in one, because I think if you get it right, it is the coolest thing. It is such an extension of where life is, because everything is amplified. All your hopes, dreams, all these kind of things can be mirrored with someone that you really care about. But fuck, it's almost like having a sports car, because when it doesn't go well, it breaks. And as much as you care about it, and you've got the sunken costs kind of thing going, but you still love to look at it, but you don't get the utility, which is driving you to have the real love and passion. That is why, I mean, like you can make an analogy, and maybe this is something that George can take on, but you can make an analogy with relationships and cars and sex lives.
Definitely.
Pretty easy.
I mean, you know that, like, again, I can only look at this from the guy's point of view because I've never been a girl, but if you look at some guys, you just know that they married a station wagon. And other guys are marrying sports cars, and some guys are not even buying the car; they're just renting it for a while. And you can see straight away that certain personalities you can equate to certain kinds of car. And I mean, like, it's incredible. Like, some people they're happy, they genuinely love, and they're comfortable in, for example, a van. Like,
Yeah.
Some people are van people. Some people are like sports car people. Some people are SUV people, and I mean, it must work the same way as if you're a woman looking at a guy, you're like, is this guy an SUV? Is he a bucky? Is he a a Unimog? I'm sure that girls look at us. They don't necessarily, unless they are petrol heads, and there are girls who love cars. But I wonder if they look at us like cars, for example. Think about us in that sense. Draw an analogy.
Yeah, I mean, obviously, everything that we say has the counterbalance effect here. But girls definitely don't do that because, firstly, they don't know enough about cars, and secondly, girls don't make jokes that we do. It's another thing that the reason I'm saying it like this is because I'm getting back to our Andrew Tate conversation earlier. Is that
here we go,
guys are just, Gareth, we have to appreciate this. We are just wired a little bit differently, and we love talking about this kind of stuff because we have this conversation a lot. So we can't just say that chick's hot, I like her. We have to have layers. This is why the car analogies are so good. Whereas with girls, they only ever talk about certain things, and then they kind of just they're happy with that. We as guys, and I've realized this over the years, our conversation complexities make us so interesting.
So women don't have to work as hard to make the impression, especially if they're good looking. Then all the work's done.
Exactly. That's why,
guys, I didn't develop a personality or a sense of humor because I wanted to develop a personality or a sense of humor. It was the only way that I got attention from girls at school. That's cut and dried, the honest to God reason that I learned to make funny remarks, to observe things in a kind of, oh, that's an interesting way. The whole business that I've been in for the last 22 years of talking shit on radio, television, and on podcasts, it comes from being at school and going, okay, well, I can look some about a 7. So in order to compete with the guys who are in the 8 category or the guys who are like tremendous sportsmen or whatever, I have to be shit hot funny. And I have to make interesting conversation. I have to know stuff. I have to know useful, cool, amazing stuff. And I promise you that is 90% of the reason that I got into this.
Exactly, because you had to create the higher value. In the messages here, Carl said something interesting about personalities of fat people. It's all about looks, and I kind of get that. If you are trying to just hook up, okay, there's a big difference between that. But from my personal experience in life, the greatest joy is when you're with someone that you care about and you are still desirable to them, and vice versa. And that is where personality has to take place, because there's only so many tricks you can play with that one horse, which is maybe being hung like a horse or looking like a certain way. That goes thin. I don't care who you are, how well you lay cable. That all that kind of stuff does go a bit thin. You have to have the personality to get that the real juice of what's out there.
But if you're a great looking girl, you don't have to do any of that. This is your people talk about privilege. And I've often said that the real privilege in the world is like growing up with both parents and they love you, and you grew up knowing you meant something to somebody, right? And we talk a lot on the show about how difficult it is to raise kids and how parents have this really tough job. All of that stuff's obviously true. But I think the real privilege in the world isn't even like parent privilege or having both parents privilege, which is the real thing. I mean, like, it's been proven time and time again that is a major advantage in life. I reckon the real privilege, my God, have you hit the jackpot? If you are a beautiful girl, if you're a great looking female on earth in 2022, your life is charmed. You are just bang in the middle of like happiness.
I want to counter argue this.
It's all yours to fuck up, is what I'm saying. Like, that's just incredible. You come out of like your teen years and you just are beautiful. You have a gorgeous face. You have lovely hair. You have nice skin. You have a good body. Boom. It's yours to fuck up, honestly. Everybody else is working just to reach a semblance of what that feels like, and you've done nothing to earn it necessarily.
No, I get you, and I agree with you on so many levels. But my final Andrew Tate story for the morning is him and his brother live in Romania. Okay, so they decided that was going to be where they were going to
place to
become.
Live. Holy shit!
Yeah, again, like it's just so smart the way that they wanted to do it because they can live cheaper, they can get all the different things they can get without the crime, anyway. They said that they used to go on holiday to this town in Slovakia, right? This was about maybe 10 years ago. And this was before Instagram. And he said that you would go into this town, there was literally the hottest 10 out of 10 women on every square mile, but there was, I don't know, they would go out and there would literally be like 110s and they were all gorgeous, right? This is before the incident happened. Then Instagram happened and the town obviously got bigger and an airport came in. But then because of Instagram, these girls were being told by, I don't know, everyone around there how hot they are. So then what happened? All these girls moved to Dubai so they can just post pictures of themselves with their various appendages in the sun. And then they are now living that life. So they went from wholesome upbringing where they had a family, they had support structures, they probably had lives of purpose, whatever. But because they're tens on Instagram, they're now living in Dubai, probably getting paid by Arab men to see their genitals. And then they've got to like date fuckboys who only care about their sports cars and status. And then you're just another dish rag that's going to be passed around. So you look at it like that and go, it's the whole thing about the curse.
Right down, right?
Yeah. So if these girls didn't live a life of vanity, they might have met someone pretty cool. Sure, he probably would have like been a farmer or whatever, but they would have had a life of purpose. They probably would have raised kids. Like I firmly believe that if a woman says they don't want kids, they're probably lying, or they're just not entirely sure they can commit to it. It's like a superpower to give. Like imagine you can give birth. That must be a superpower to a woman. So all of these girls who are so hot, they're being objectified in their primes until they get to like 32, 33 when they start, going off the shelf life for what that life is.
It's a very destructive feedback loop.
It is so destructive because then the insecurities come in because you've been told you're beautiful for every single day, fire emoji, aubergine. And then suddenly you don't get that. You think, oh shit, okay, well, what have I got? I don't have a family. I got such a distaste. I got such a distaste for men because they just they objectify me all this time. So would you then talk to that woman in their 40s who's just now gone for her third operation on her face, whatever, fourth boob job, whatever? Wouldn't she prefer to live in that village again? And a lot of them might go, sure, actually, that sounds not so bad. Beauty can be an absolute curse.
Maybe they have to go back to the village because people aren't paying them money to stay in Dubai anymore. So
yes, they will. They'll go back to.
They could get to experience that firsthand.
But they'll go back to that village, Gareth, with no idea of how to work a plow. They won't have kids to look after when they're older. They'll literally be like that broken down sports car in a rough area that people have graffitied. And I know that sounds incredibly crass, but this is the full circle moment we've got here.
Jesus. Carl says it's one direction. Hot women are apex predators. They do not need to be funny or interesting. An ugly dude can land a 9 by being funny. I'm a case in point. It makes no sense that my wife is with me, says Carl.
Carl, you keep talking about this wife of yours. If we don't get any pictures soon, we're not going to take your comment seriously.
And then, Thurant says quite rightly, the thing about looks, it fades. And that is true. But I still believe it's the greatest privilege. Again, nobody is going to be attractive to everyone all the time. And everyone becomes old. And some people become old and bloody ugly, and some people age gracefully. And sometimes it's just the luck of the draw. It's like your genes, right? You can mitigate that somewhat if you're a man by having personality and money. And if you're a woman with personality, a lot of guys are quite intimidated by that. Weaker guys, obviously not, the kind of guys that you want to hang around with, frankly. But I think you can mitigate. It's easier for men to mitigate that stuff than it is for women.
Sure, of course.
Because women actually look at the whole person, whereas men we're mostly stupid. And this is the counterbalance to all the conversation we've had where, like we are objectifying women, etc. The reality is like women actually appreciate the whole person, which is why a guy can continue to have value as he ages. And it doesn't go the other way around. Men are mostly stupid about that.
No, I wouldn't say they're stupid about it. You look at what you need in life, right? Like I look at myself. I cook. I can support myself. I can do pretty much anything. Like I'm a catch to myself because of where I've designed it. So I'm not essentially looking at that. People go, oh, okay, well, you're hugely shallow. It's like, no, it's just that's what I need in life. I need someone that I'm physically attracted to. I need someone that's going to be so invigorating and make me feel younger, because that's how guys look at things. When you look at someone like a woman looks at a guy and goes, I need him to provide me with this and that and this, like in a traditional sense, right? You need security, you need a future.
I can already hear the feminists. I can already hear the feminists saying, "No, that's not true. I can look after myself. I don't need you for that."
Cool. Then I always say the best of luck to that. But instinctively, genetically, women will look at a guy differently to men because of what you need. So call me superficial, call guys superficial, call any honest guy superficial, because every guy after a couple of beers will say exactly what I've just said there. You look at what you need. You don't look at the whole picture. I don't often give a shit. But I say it's about all people. I'm not like focusing on women here. And this is why I'm single, guys. This is why I'm single, as you can see. I have my mouth. And...
I think that was the conclusion. If anyone
That's the conclusion right there.
If anyone has found anything that Ben and I have said this morning to be completely offensive and wrong-minded and stupid and ignorant and all, well, take your the antidote, the punishment that we are existing in is the fact that we're both single at the moment anyway. So that should make you happy. No one wants to be with us, even if our opinions we think are true and valuable. Right now, there's no one.
I firmly disagree. Lots of people want to be with us, Gareth. Of course, that's absolute bullshit. We're just very selective.
All right. Well, someone who's chosen to be with us this morning is Borge. It's always good to have George Meany on the show. How you doing?
Good and you?
Good. Nice
Choosing by obligation, perhaps.
George, what do you think of Ben's analogy earlier that that we could look at women and women could look at us as cars and different kinds of cars? Like, when you're looking at a station wagon, and when you're looking at a minivan, and when you're looking at a sports car, right?
Yeah, I mean, I think that's to a certain degree, I suppose, it can be argued that it's still objectifying, but I suppose people do look at each other in a superficial way, which is, I suppose, the sad part. You've got to get to know the whole person.
It's the accurate part, though, George, because that's why those cars in the Soviet Union never really sold internationally, because they just didn't look that great.
What
they were also absolute dogs.
Larders. That's a horrible car.
Also, if you were to look at the Fiat Multipla, probably a good car, but people didn't want that, right? On superficial basis.
Yeah. Well, I mean, if you think about it, most cars, the utility is the same. It does the same thing. It's really just the aesthetics that's different. Most cars are good cars.
But that doesn't make us shallow consumers, though, George.
Most people are good with plow, Ben. But it doesn't mean you want to be with them. All right, Borge, what do we got this morning?
Well, Gareth, this is a surprising story in that there have been about 4 or 5. And I drive a Jaguar I-Pace, right? I've been slightly criticized for being a little bit too positive for EVs. So now and again, I'm going to bring you a little bit of a negative story just to balance the scales a little bit. But there have been approximately 4 or 5 Jaguar I-Paces that have spontaneously combusted.
Oh, shit, George. Have you got a fire extinguisher in yours just in case?
No, I don't.
Look at this picture George just put up. It's like the whole car is burned. No one's getting out of that alive.
No. So, I mean, obviously there's been thousands and thousands of these things that have been sold worldwide, and there have been other marks and models besides Jaguar I-Pace that have set light, but this is the latest one. And this particular gentleman charged his car overnight in his garage and went down the next morning to go to work, got in the car, unplugged it, got in the car, got out again. He was going to leave. And then when he came back to the garage, was met with a wall of smoke.
Jesus.
And he said he heard this like crackling and popping sound in his garage. So what he decided to do was jump in the car. I think it's a stupid thing to do. This was a 2019 Jaguar I-Pace in Florida in the US. Decided to jump in the car and pull it out of the garage while it was smoking. But it probably saved his house, because most houses in America, I mean, if you look at that picture, it looks like a lot of wood and stuff are in the houses in America.
Dude. No. He did the right thing. I mean, I'm glad that he didn't burn to death in the car as well. But George, you better have a fire extinguisher just in case, Sam.
Well, I mean, I got a little bit of a wake up call when I read that article.
Well, but isn't it true that, I mean, you must also, I've always been confused by this. And actually, this is one of the things I've always wanted to ask you, because you're our guy when it comes to cars. How come you still see so many cars that are just abandoned on the side of the road and burnt out? I mean, how often does that actually happen? Because I've seen it a lot in my life. I've often seen burnt out cars sitting on the side of the road.
Well, I mean, I suppose you've got to decide whether that is awesome and an insurance claim, because it could be, it could be a way to kind of, sure, but I can't sell this car, so let me burn it. It could be arson and insurance claim. I'm not saying they all are, but they're not all EVs. You're right. And I mean, I don't know if you remember the Ford Cougar that set alight. There was a whole recall of the Fords in South Africa because they were setting alight. So it's not only reserved for EVs. Be careful. The one thing an EV battles to handle is heat. Heat, to a certain degree, extreme cold, but mainly heat. So if you do drive an EV, like I went down to my mom 2 or 3 weeks ago and took my iPace with me. And the practice I follow is when I get to a fast charger, I leave it for about 5 or 10 minutes. The car's just been driving, the battery's been working, the lithium ion inside there is hot. Before I plug it into this 155 kilowatt charger, leave it for 5 minutes.
Right.
Just let it cool down a little bit.
Lithium
ion doesn't like heat.
No, that's very clever, because otherwise you're just stressing the whole thing. And these batteries, we know they can be extremely temperamental. I mean, even the most advanced battery technology still relies on basic metal transferring ions from the cathode to the anode, or vice versa.
Exactly. So if you are driving, and you know what, I wanted to extend the story to a lot of people have golf carts. Golfers. I don't know if you golf, Ben.
If you live in a golf estate, lots of people drive that around.
Yes, those have lithium-ion batteries in them as well, and many people leave them charged overnight, 24 hours, the entire weekend, the entire week. How do you know that's not going to sit out?
So, George, it actually happens at some golf courses over the years that they're obviously all in huts together, right? And I think even as recently as this year, I think it was Milnerton golf course. That happened, and then the entire shed went up in flames.
Exactly. So it's not only reserved for EVs; it gets headlines because it's new to the market. But in India, as a matter of fact, electric bikes were catching fire, hand over foot.
Carl says, back to Ben's analogy: send flames to a cougar, and that's what happens. Full circle. All right, what else have we got?
Well, so would you ban cars from inner cities?
No. It's the place people probably, we don't have public transport infrastructure in South Africa. I mean, what else? You could use the Ria Via buses? I mean, do me a favor. You can't, this is fine in a city like London or maybe New York. And most people don't want a car because there's nowhere to park the damn thing in big cities like that. And it's just essentially, if government, they don't ban you. What they do is they'll charge you a lot of money to drive your car in town. So it's just a tax. It's basically a luxury tax.
Exactly. So San Francisco has just banned cars from Market Street. And
how about they ban homeless people? That would be a good start.
What if they ban number twos from pavements?
That would also be good. Yeah, that would be nice. San Francisco. You're so worried about cars, but there are other things on the priority list that you should have got to first. Why are they doing that in San Fran, George?
Well, it's a whole range of things. The first is creating more space for restaurants and businesses, trying to promote walking pedestrians and cyclists, and cutting down on injuries in the inner city so people can walk freely, as well as allowing kids to play. so that they don't have to worry about cars. But I think it's more about the space, the business, and the ability to monetize the city more.
The government wants to make it. They want to tax people. That's what it is. Number one reason. And by the way, this is also why these carbon taxes that governments all over the world are getting super excited about. It's not because they care about the environment. It's because they want to skim every cent off of you that they can. The other reason that San Francisco is doing this is because the people who run San Francisco are the most left-leaning people in America, and they all believe in the green economy, and they all think that cars are just the most evil things ever. So if they can ban cars they think they're going to make the world safer and better and greener, and they're not. They're idiots.
And they all smoke weed.
Yes, God damn it. What does weed smell like, Ben?
Poverty, Gareth. Hard poverty.
There we go.
And then the Bond franchise is turning 60. I don't know if you were familiar with old Bond's franchises, but in commemoration of the 60 years of James Bond films, they will be auctioning off a whole range of Land Rovers and Range Rovers used in the Bond movies, particularly the Bond movie No Time to Die. These Range Rovers and Land Rovers will be stamped with a particular vehicle identification number, the VIN number, that is 007. And they're going on auction, the whole range of them, SVRs, Defender 110s, the V8 Bond edition. And they're going to start at about 4 million Rand, 200,000 pounds, and the auction will range probably to about 6 million Rand. So there's just over 300 Bond editions available worldwide, but these ones were actually used in the movie.
Yeah, I think Ben, you're a huge Bond fan. I mean, it must be quite cool to say that you're not just driving any old car, you're driving one that was in a Bond movie. That's quite lekker. I think that's nice. They'll probably get their price and some.
Oh, yeah, definitely,
yeah. And it's going to charity too, right? So,
no, 100%. Cool. So, George, anything else, George?
Yeah, so hang on a second. George, did you see that this week, talking about cars being auctioned, Michael Schumacher's 1998 Formula One Ferrari is being auctioned? And they're expecting the bids to get up to $8 million. But what I find interesting about this is that you look at that car, and it literally just looks like some car that's some oak in the East Rand is putting together. Back in 1998, those cars were very, very basic. No halo.
They were very rudimentary. No halo. They had. They looked like a Formula Ford looks today.
Yes.
The Formula Ford cars, if you've ever seen one. But I wonder what's happened to Michael Schumacher. To be honest, it's very, very hush hush. Nobody really knows.
Well, he's definitely not living his best life. I mean, otherwise he'd still be skiing and driving Formula One cars. But clearly, he can't do either of those anymore. So he's probably just drooling a lot.
Yeah, and you wonder why they're auctioning this thing off. So what is the real underlying reason?
Medical bills build up, man. All right, well, let's not end on a depressing, sad note like that. If you're taking a long weekend, you've got until Tuesday to see us again. We'll only be back on Wednesday for people who are away for the long weekend, but otherwise we'll be back on Monday morning for more. Always good to have you on, George. Thank you very much for your time this morning. And don't forget brand new episodes of the Auto Trader podcast every week here on cliffcentral.com and wherever you get your podcasts. Ben, we'll check. I'll see you tomorrow for the rugby, but otherwise I'll see you on Friday next week for the show.
All right.
Awesome.
Very good.
Bye, everybody. Bye-bye.